What is up, everybody? What's going on? Today we are breaking down the 2024 NBA draft. We are streaming on multiple platforms here, guys. If you love the NBA draft and you want to know more and more about second round and sleepers, that is what we are doing today. We're doing a snake draft and talking about the best Sixers targets in that second round and guys that maybe could be on the Summer League squad. Joining me, he is Ryan Quill. What's up, man? How you doing?
What's up? How are you? Yeah, it's exciting to be here. I feel like we've been over these past kind of couple months been really diving in to the draft and interested to see how it all breaks down with the 2-day draft this year. But excited and hope the Sixers sit there and pick at 16. I feel like won't waste as much of my time if they do trade the pick.
Yeah, and we will be doing an NBA draft watch party starting around 7:45ish. Breaking down the biggest Sixers news, reactions to every single pick. So, yeah, on Pick Swap Media, they do a great job of covering the top guys, but that's not the meat and potatoes of roster construction. That's what we're talking about today. Also joining us, he is Sean Bernard. What's up, Sean?
Yeah, doing great. I'm excited to dive into some of these guys. These are, as you mentioned, like this is where you can really take your franchise to another level. If you hit on these second round picks, guys without guaranteed contracts, both from the financial aspect and obviously the talent aspect, when you can hit it out of the park in a second rounder, put yourself in a really good spot. And I do think that this draft is as much of a crapshoot as ever. There's a lot of guys worth paying attention to and excited to dive into each of them.
Yeah, and this is going to be fun because it's 2 days. So we're going to have a whole day of kind of dissecting who's available, who's going to be sitting there. As we currently stand, the Sixers have 2 picks in that second round. Kind of up in the air what they do with number 16. It probably most likely will get traded. I agree with Ryan. I hope they keep the pick. I hope they keep adding young talent, wings, guards to this roster. And boy, do they need them. We have Al in the house saying that's a handsome panel. It's over there, not over here. We also have Marshawn. Isaiah Joe was a great second-round pick. Ricky Council. That was a gem they found. Guys like that. That's what we're going to be here talking about. So let's roll on. We have a wheel spinner for the number 1 pick. Good luck, gentlemen. We'll see how this plays out. If it's like a fringe first-round pick, oh my God, let's freaking go!
Wow. I thought it was hanging on for me there.
That is super lucky. All right, I got number 1. Let's see who gets the number 2 pick. Again, this is a snake draft. We're going to be picking our favorite targets in that day 2 range. Team Ryan, you got the second pick.
Probably rather have the third, actually.
Get it on the turn.
Guys.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
I got screwed.
All right, Team Ryan, number 2, and then Sean, you got number 3. All right, so I am on the clock here. There's definitely a lot of ways I can go on this, but the guy that I really want to get, and you could put him in your top target list for pick number 16, but a guy that I really like is Terrence Shannon Jr., and that's what I'm going to do here with my number 1 pick. Terrence Shannon Jr., we all know the allegations were dropped over the last few weeks. No, Marshawn, I am not taking Bronny James. Absolutely not. LeBron's not coming to the Sixers, man. It's just not. It's just not happening. But Terrence Shannon Jr., man, he's a fun athlete out of Illinois. Excellent transition prospect. He's got some defensive upside, lightning quick in the open floor. And he's kind of an ascending playmaker with some solid range on that jumper. He made a huge leap with his jump shot this past season, 38 catch and shoot threes last year. He hit 33s off the dribble. And, do you believe in that shot translating? I sure do. Negative wise, I'm not sure how much he offers beyond that. He's kind of a limited rebounder. And that was a huge weakness for the Sixers. But when you talk about tools and NBA body and, room for growth as a playmaker, I love Terrence Shannon Jr., and I'm going to make him my first pick. He was kind of thrown off our boards here when Sean and I were doing our top 10. But now that the allegations are dropped, I think he's got to get some respect here. Give me Terrence Shannon Jr. for my number 1 pick. Ryan, you're on the clock.
All right. My number 1 pick, I will go with Harrison Ingram out of North Carolina.
I like that.
Sean and I were talking about it a couple weeks ago. He's definitely one of the guys that I'm like pitching my wagon to and saying, like, he's my guy. I think whatever situation he winds up in, he's going to wind up thriving. I can see him just being a really, really productive second unit player for good teams going forward. Really impressive this year. Transferred to North Carolina his first year there, getting out of a Stanford situation that didn't really get the most out of him, I think. This year at UNC, 12.2 points per game, 8.8 rebounds per game. And he shot 38.5% from 3 on 4.5 attempts. So a good volume there. The one thing that is a little bit concerning about him at the combine, he only measured in a little bit over 6'5". It was like 6'5.25". So that worries me a little bit, but still, if he's 6'5" and he's rebounding 8-9 rebounds per game as he did this past year at North Carolina, I think you can kind of put that little size concern to the side a little bit. But just a super talented player, has a high pedigree, was a former McDonald's All-American. So I love his game, and I think he's just going to be a really productive, like 6th, 7th man on a team going forward. My comparison for him was like a Naz Reid light kind of version, where it's a little bit of like a bigger guard type of player, but does a little bit of everything. I do want to see the consistency of that 3-point shot pick it up a little bit more, because the first 2 years at Stanford didn't shoot it that well. But I would love if he, even if the Sixers picked him at like 16, he kind of fits in that kind of Tristan da Silva mold as well, where I think he can kind of contribute right away. So Harrison Ingram would be my number 1 pick there.
I love that selection. Excellent 3D prospect. Will the shot translate? I think so as well. And I like the rebounding. Way better rebounder than Terrence Shannon. Any thoughts, Sean?
Yeah, I like both the names that you guys brought up so far. And just a little bit on both. Terrence Shannon Jr., the number 1 thing that jumps out to me, dude, unbelievably physical when he attacks the basket. Like, he gets to the line at a crazy high rate. He had 8.6 free throw attempts per game last year, and he's very much a guy who initiates the contact, who puts his shoulders down. He's trying to create and plays off it very well. There's a little bit of like Jaylen Brown in him in that aspect, and I don't think he'll raise to like that caliber of player by any means, but I do think he will be a guy that sticks around the NBA for the long haul. I like that pick a lot, and I do think that he ends up in the first round when everything's said and done this year. For Harrison Ingram, that is a dude that I think sneaks into the second round. Very surprised to see him measuring at 6'5". That, like you, I kind of labeled him as maybe even a small ball 5, but I'm a little skeptical more after that. I talked a little bit about Ryan about this before, but he seems very Kevon Looney to me, the way that Looney transitioned from being like a perimeter player in college into a true center at the NBA level. It wouldn't shock me if Ingram takes that route, but I am a believer in his skill set and do think that he's going to be a guy that is very effective at the NBA. So like all of that as well for the top 2. As far as my first round pick for this is another guy that I think probably ends up in the first round, but it's Baylor Scheierman here. Out of Creighton, 6'6" guard. He spent 3 years at South Dakota State before transferring to Creighton for the past 2 years. 18.5 points per game, 9.0 rebounds, which I really like. A high-level rebounder for his size. 3.9 assists, shot 38.1% from 3 this year on 8.3 3-point attempts per game. Some other stuff on him is he's a really good connective passer. I do believe that he can run an offense in a pinch. I'm not sure. I don't think he'll end up like a point guard. I think more of that wing and connective archetype, where he's more of a shooting guard, small forward. But in the right situation in the half court, he absolutely can play make. I like his pick and roll feel a ton for him. So he's a guy that is just deserves to be in the first round conversation for me. He's a winning player. I think he'll stick around the NBA for a long time and be one of those like 5th end starters / rotational players.
What's your take on his defense? Any thoughts?
I mean, it's not great. I don't think it'll be an area where he shines, but I also don't think it's to the level where like he can be bullied by opposing teams, where they're calling the screen and bringing him over on every possession. I don't think it's to that level that I'm concerned, but it's definitely a reason why he will be around as long as he will be.
Yeah, I saw some scouting reports, saying that he's a great defensive player, and I didn't buy it.
I don't think so either. I think like the athleticism is one of the biggest like cons that I've seen with him. He's certainly like a below the rim and not explosive in the way that he plays. But like the defense to me didn't jump off as a huge positive or negative. I think he'll be competitive enough. He's definitely a guy that like is willing to take on a one-on-one matchup and take that a little personally. So I certainly don't project him as like a plus defender at the NBA level, but I think he won't play himself off the court.
I agree. Sean is in the war room with LeBron. He didn't take Bronny.
I did not. I
Still on
also
the board.
I'll admit right now, he's not even in my top 2 USC prospects. But I think I'm rolling with Boogie Ellis over Bronny James from that USC backcourt here.
All right. Who is you got back-to-back picks, man.
That's
Who's
right.
your round 2 pick?
All right, a little more swing for the fences pick here. A guy that has been confirmed a workout for the Sixers out of Weber State, Dylan Jones here. I love him. He's basically like Grant Williams in a point guard body. He plays a little bit like Raymond Felton. You're going to feel him. Like, he is huge. He uses every bit of his size, and the guy is a double-double machine. To dive into what he produced on the court, 6'6.5" or 6'4.5" that he measured in it. 6'11" wingspan, 237 pounds. He's a big boy for sure. He's 22 years old, 20.8 points per game, 9.8 rebounds, 5.2 assists, 2.0 steals. Didn't shoot the ball particularly well, 32.4% from three, which is the biggest concern of his, but he's just a very good basketball player. He was the engine of that entire Weber State team. And by the way, he averaged over 10 rebounds per game the 2 seasons prior. Yeah, he's a bully ball point guard. That's a great way to put it right there. He's also a guy that, like, I just trust to be like, I think so often we look at these individual skills that's what it is. It's the shooting. It's a guy that can rebound. And I get caught up in that as well. This is just a guy that can do a little bit of everything in a good way. I think he finds a way to stick in the NBA. I like his game. He's electric to watch. Sign me up for Dylan Jones.
Love it, man. He was a fun watch for sure.
Yeah.
I covered him, and the rebounding. This guy around the basket, man, looks really fun. Ryan, who's your number 2?
All right, my number 2 pick, I'm going to go with a local kid out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm going to go with Justin Edwards here out of Kentucky. The big thing with Edwards for me, it's like I've seen his name definitely more so in the second round, in a lot of mock drafts too, towards the back half of the second round. But if you're going to be so like down on him, then why are you so high on Isaiah Collier? Like, Isaiah Collier and Justin Edwards were kind of in the same 1-2 conversation at the beginning of the year. And I don't really think Collier was up and above shining that much more. And Justin Edwards, I'm going to buy into his measurables and his frame more than Collier. I'm going to take my chances with the 6'6", 200-pound athletic wing over, a guard that plays more of kind of a bully ball style and doesn't really have a great outside shot. Over his last 12 games too, Edwards averaged 11 points per game. And I've seen a lot of other reporters in the media talk about how they talked with teams, and they were really impressed with kind of the second half of his season and the way he came along. My comparison for him is like a Nickeil Alexander-Walker type, where I think he's got that really good athleticism and good length that I think he's going to be a disruptive piece if he commits on the defensive end. If he can just find a way to be like a 38 to 39, 40% three-point shooter and knock down shots from the corner, he's going to find his way in this league for a long time. He's never really going to reach that ceiling where he was hyped up as potential number 1 pick coming into the year. But I do think he can bring a lot of attractive ability and traits to a team off the bench, especially early in his career. And it's another guy where why give up on him? It's not like he completely bottomed out at Kentucky. Kentucky had a team that played 11 guys. Like that was a team that you're not really going to be putting up the best of statistics with unless you have the ball in your hands a lot. And that wasn't really what he was asked to do. So if you're looking for a good, attractive player off the bench that can still develop into something, I think Edwards fits that description. So give me Justin Edwards there.
I like how we're all kind of relatively on the same page with these kind of types of prospects.
Yeah.
It makes me feel good. All right, I'm jumping in here. I'm running to the podium. If I'm Daryl Morey, I'm going to make this selection. I'm really excited. I'm going Jalen Tyson out of California. Are we good with that?
Well, our guy Mark Henry Jr. refuses to believe that this guy isn't a lottery pick, but I think that's high for him. I don't think he'll go there, but I'm with you. If this is a second round, you should be sprinting the podium for Jalen Tyson.
This guy's really fun. The Sixers need a shot creator off the bench. That's what this guy is. That's what he projects to be. 6'7", junior at Cal. He had some primary ball handling duties. He's probably not going to do a lot of that in Philadelphia, but excellent in the pick and roll. 35% of his offensive possessions came as a ball handler in the pick and roll. He's got a really good first step. He's got excellent touch on all 3 levels of the floor. He can, put the ball in the basket on unassisted attempts. He shot 59% at the rim on 188 attempts, and 70% of those were unassisted, 42% in the mid-range, and 93% of those were unassisted, and then 36% on three-point attempts, 48% unassisted. So He's excellent at getting to the free throw line. He shot 77% there as well. And when he's in the paint, man, the dude is pretty legit as well. So as a secondary, ball handler, as a shot creator, this guy has shiftiness. He's crafty. He's got a lot of creative ways to kind of put the ball in the basket. He's got nice change of direction skills with the ball in his hands and kind of keep defenders off balance and hunt for his shot. So give me Jalen Tyson here for my number 2 pick. I'm going to roll on and
just real quick, the shades of in that scouting report, shades of Jared Dudley and Ryan Gomez, pretty insulting to Jalen Tyson there, man.
Yeah.
I think he's way better than those kind of comps.
Yeah, these are not mine. These are scouting reports from the Ringer. So Sean, you took my number 2, which was
with Dylan Jones.
Baylor Shireman. I really like Baylor Shireman for the Sixers there. But I'm kind of going to go in the same realm. Give me Kevin McCullough out of Kansas for my number 3 here as we start round 3. But Kevin McCullough is a very solid defender, 6'6". He's disruptive. He can defend 1 through 4, I think. Maybe not at an elite level, but he's got quick hands. He's got good hand-eye coordination. And I think he's really good off the ball. And that was one thing we saw Kelly Oubre kind of thrive in when he was playing the correct role alongside Joel Embiid. I think this guy can do a little bit of that. He can cut to the basket. He can finish around the basket. This is not a guy that's ever going to lead an offense, kind of like a Jalen Tyson. I don't think he's even going to lead an offense, but the ball's not going to be in his hands. But for Kevin McCullough, I think he's got a lot of connective tissue, connective pieces to a really solid NBA player. He can impact the game in a lot of different ways as an off-ball scorer. And you look at the comparison, Nico Batum. So give me Kevin McCullough Jr. as my number 3 pick.
Yeah, I really like that Kelly Oubre kind of comparison. I don't think he'll ever be that. What was that? Oubre 2 years ago averaged like 19 points per game. I don't think he'll be in that, but like a really nice off the bench type of piece. And he's just a guy that kind of gets it. Like he knows what he's going to bring to the table. And he was what really made that Kansas team go. He got injured down the stretch, and that's when they really started to struggle. So I know he had some lingering knee issues. I'm kind of curious to see how that affects him going forward, but he's another player where second round, highly productive college player. Let's not continue to underestimate these guys and sleep on these guys, because we're seeing them make impacts, especially in the playoffs, time and time again.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a guy that I almost feel bad for an extent, that he checked every single box that teams should be looking at from last year to this year and through his college career to this year to climb draft boards. And we just really haven't seen that. But he has been a guy pegged as a second round talent. And the production seems like it should be a little bit more than that. We're talking about him eclipsing 18 points per game, him being a really good connective piece. And I think there's some skepticism to this being a little bit of an outlier shooting year from him is a lot of the reason why. To put it in perspective, through his first 4 years of college, he shot just 29.8% from 3 and 73.3% from the free throw line. It was far better than that this year, and if that's there to stick, he's absolutely an NBA player. The thing that really shot him up boards for me, he quietly is a very good entry passer. That Kansas did a lot of kind of shifting it around when they're digging it down in the post, that they're flipping it to Kevin McCullough first to get it down there. We found how difficult that can be for a team built around Joel Embiid. So that definitely opened my eyes there.
Love it, man. It would be nice to have someone that can throw an entry pass in Philadelphia. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, there was the Nico Batum comp as well.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, Ryan, who are you going with?
All right, so this player I was actually between with my second selection, so I'm happy to have him here at number 3, and I'm going to be really shocked if he actually is a second-round pick come the draft, but I'm going to go with Tyler Kolek out of Marquette. I think pure point guard play, you can make an argument that he is the best pure point guard in this draft. 15.3 points per game this past year. He was banged up a little bit, missed some time, but was Big East Player of the Year 2 years ago as he led Marquette to the Big East regular season title. Some quick stats on him from this year: 9 games of 20 or more points, 10 games of double-digit assists, 7 games with 3 or more threes, and 8 games with double-doubles of points and assists. So he really filled up the stat sheet, and he wasn't 100% healthy the whole year. And he's shown he made the jump transferring from George Mason to Marquette. His first year at Marquette didn't really light the world on fire, but 2 super productive back-to-back years at Marquette. He's a classic example, I think, of we're kind of just underestimating him because he doesn't have elite measurables or he's not an elite athlete, but he showed, especially at a high level in the Big East, which you're playing against high-level guards every single night. That's a war of competition out there. He dominated and was the best player on the floor, 9 times out of 10. So Tyler Kolek, I think he's like a perfect fit to go potentially. I think it's at number 25 or 22 to the Suns, I believe it would be. I think he kind of fits in there. But if he falls into like the beginning of the second round, I expect him to be one of those first players off the board. NBA ready. We're not really going to be getting much more out of him, like potential wise, but what he is now, I think, is good enough to be maybe even a starting point guard as soon as this season.
Yeah, clear need for the Sixers. I would love that selection. What about you, Sean?
Yeah, you should put his pick and roll decision making in a textbook. The way that he is able to kind of slip those passes and make the right call just about every single time. The dude competes too. Like he's got a fire in him when you watch him play that I really like. I think he's a player that like is very team specific on how important he will be. That I do think there's certain teams where we may, if he lands on those, we look back and he's not really in the NBA for too long. But there's teams like the Suns that I think he absolutely could be perfect for. So I like Tyler Kolek. We'll be rooting for him. He's not as high on my list of Sixers priorities, but I do think he's a good player and we'll find a way.
Yeah, maybe this starts the run of point guards. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right, Sean, back-to-back picks, man.
All right, back-to-back picks. I'm going to move overseas for this pick. I'm going to go Nikola Jurisic here. Really intriguing player. He's self-described as a, quote, less athletic Anthony Edwards, which I just love hearing that out of his mouth here. The thing that's really interesting to me, so he played on the same team as Nikola Topic, who's been talked about as one of the highest potential players in this entire draft. Topic was a guy who has the partial ACL tear, so likely will slide a little bit in the draft, but was in the mix for the top 5 and maybe even 1 discussion for a good portion of this year. I just don't think they're that different. That I look at Jurisic, he's a guy whose production certainly skyrocketed after that when Topic got hurt, and he was kind of in and out for a good portion of this year. They're very similar skill set. Topic is a little bit bigger and certainly more polished from a shooting or from a everything standpoint, the rebounding, the assist, the scoring. Statistically, he's more polished, but Jurisic a slightly better shooter. He's still got a ways to go. He's got his handles are pretty sick. He's a fun watch when you watch him play basketball. I just don't really see the difference between these two, and they played on the same team. I'm surprised to hear Topic is talked about as this hyped up prospect while Jurisic kind of slides. I think this is a guy who's a first round talent, and we're kind of sleeping on him, so I took him right here.
Love it. Nikola Jurisic for Sean. Who's your number 4?
Number 4, and a guy that I particularly love out of Marquette, Oso Iguodaro here. Really fun player, really high IQ guy. The concerns are he's slightly undersized, and he's not a guy who's an elite rebounder, which is going to be important. That being paired with him not being a shooter, then doesn't shoot the 3 ball like at all. To run through his stats, he measured in at 6'9.5". He's about to turn 22, 6'11" wingspan, averaged 13.4 points, 6.9 rebounds, 2.9 assists, 1.3 block, and 1.1 steal per game. What stands out to me is he is a guy that I think you can play make through, that I think you can be the type of forward or big man that you're running DHOs, running dribble handoffs, running a little bit of him making a connective pass when there's off-ball motion. He's a really smart player. I watched this video of him basically calling out NBA plays as they happen, where they would just play a set and then say, like, what do you think's going down here? And he's literally like scripting, like, they look like they're going to run a screen off here. He's a guy that just gets it. And I think, like, while he might not have that tangible skill that makes you believe why he's there, I wish he was a little bit better athlete. But the bottom line is there's enough there that I'm willing to gamble on this guy. He stood out to me every time I watched Marquette play as a dude that was kind of built for this, and that there's just so many skills there. So sign me up for Oso Iguodaro.
Love it, man.
Super efficient player too. Like this was his worst year shooting. If you exclude his freshman year when he only played in 5 games, but he shot 57.6% this year, and in the last 2 years he shot 66 and 67. So like he doesn't really shoot much outside from kind of around the paint, but he has that little floater, that little push shot where I saw him connect with Tyler Kolek on probably a million times over the past 2 years at Marquette, and it feels like he never misses. It reminds me so much of that shot that Hartenstein on the Knicks had against the Sixers that entire series. But a player that knows his role, and I think will be great kind of in like that dunker spot and as a lob threat, because he's very comfortable with it in college, and I think that's really more of an NBA role if you kind of look at it more. You see it more and more in the NBA than you do in college. So I think he kind of slides in perfectly there. And like you said, Sean, seen a lot of people kind of raving about that basketball IQ of his.
Yeah. William says OG entering free agency. Did the Knicks not sign him? Well,
So he had the $19.5 million player option that today was the deadline on. So he officially declined that, which isn't a surprise there. He seems to be in the market for at least 30 mil. So definitely not ruling him out with coming back to the Knicks, but more of just like today was the day to make that official.
I'd rather have OG than PG or anybody like that. All right.
A little hot take here. I don't think OG Anunoby's a max player. I just don't.
Oh, he's not at all. It's just what the market says.
Yeah. He's going to get it.
That's a frustrating part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the whole. I remember having those conversations about trading for him, and
Right.
this moment right now, and
Yeah.
that decision making is scary, man. It's scary.
And look a little Tobias Harris like I could see with
Absolutely.
this contract. Yeah.
All right, Ryan, you're on the clock, man.
All right, I'm going to go with one of the more dominant players from not a power conference. This guy comes out of the Atlantic 10. I'm going with Deron Holmes from Dayton here. Watched him in person against St. Joe's this year down at Hagan Arena, and it was just impressive to see kind of the ground he covers and the space that he's able to kind of swallow up in the paint. Like anything on the offensive and defensive end around the rim was his. There was like St. Joe's started the game out hot that I was at, but once Holmes kind of flipped the switch and turned it on, that's when the game really went south for St. Joe's, and Dayton kind of ran him out of the gym from that point on. So it says it right there. Throwback big who can block shots and finish lobs. But the growing offensive game, I think, is a definitely attractive part of his ability too. This past year, he shot 2.5 attempts from three, and he shot 38.6% from three. So that's pretty decent volume right there for a guy that's shown the ability to kind of improve, because the year before he shot only 31.6, and that was on less than one attempt per game. So he really upped those numbers this year and shot it at a pretty decent volume. So I like to see that. 8.5 rebounds per game, 20.4 points. Like I said, playing at a lower level. He was the most athletic player on the floor at all times in the Atlantic 10. But that athleticism and I think the potential kind of sticks out for going forward. And if they do get a point, like a more so point guard, and let Tyrese Maxey kind of take over just that scoring guard type of role, this is a player that I do think, if you get the point guard-ish player in free agency or the draft at number 16, this is a great pick if he's there at 41 or wherever we're picking next, because I think he fits into that mold of, he's going to run the floor, he's going to play hard, and give you a good 14 minutes or so behind Embiid whenever he's out.
Dude, he was such a great watch, man. He's so ridiculous efficient in the pick and roll, man. I would love that pick. I think he's a first round pick. No,
I do too. And he's like a legitimate, like he'll take you off the dribble. The athleticism's there. Like he had a couple like spin moves and crossovers that I was like, it's insane to be seeing a guy his size have the confidence and ability to do that stuff. His spin move specifically is something he goes to pretty often. He's a guy that I would throw a little bit of a Naz Reid comp to as well, that I think that could be a role for him as more of a 4 than a 5 at the NBA level. The shooting, we'll see. Like Naz Reid is obviously like as elite of a big man shooter as they pretty much come. But I do think Deron Holmes, the athleticism there, and you can use him in a lot of different ways. I love him. I wouldn't even be mad about that as a first round pick.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I'm going to roll on real quick. Give me Bub Carrington. Is that cool?
We'll give it to you. I do think he's a guy that will be a first round pick, but go for it.
Yeah. All right, hold on. Team Ryan, you went Deron Holmes. Let me write that in real quick. Dayton. All right, I'm going to go Bub Carrington. I already have Jalen Tyson. Let's add more shot creators to the Sixers roster. Carrington is a bucket, man. He's got really good size, 6'8" wingspan. He's a guy that could provide a clear role for the Sixers with his shot making. I think he could also be a playmaker as well. He kept the turnovers down at Pittsburgh this past season. 24% assist rate last year, and he didn't really have full ball handling duties as well. So I like that improvement there as a playmaker. This is a guy that can hit weak side corners. He's a guy that checks off a lot of boxes as a playmaker. So the shot making, the catch and shoot, the jump shots from the mid range, the spot up shooting, it's all there as an offensive player. And I think he would be a very solid fit alongside Tyrese Maxey if you're talking the second round pick. So, and this guy would be so much fun to watch in the summer league, man. Oh my God. Like with Turk and just lighting it up from the perimeter. Give me Bub Carrington for my fourth pick. All right.
Yeah, love that. He's still just 18 years old too, so a guy that's in the early end of his developmental arc. I think he'll be a dude that benefits from at the NBA level having less on his plate, that he was a bit of a shot chucker, throwing up a ton at Pitt there. The other thing that really stood out to me about him, he ran 12.6 pick and rolls per game at Pitt and scored a 1.1 points per possession rate, which ranked in the 90th percentile among college basketball. If you can be efficient in the pick and roll in college and can translate that to the NBA, there's a place for you as a guard. So if Bub Carrington can keep that going, I think this is a little bit more of the upside swings, but I love his game. I would love to see him in a Sixers uniform, and he's going to be a fun player to watch wherever he lands.
All right. And
Yeah, two players that if the Sixers are going to take kind of a swing for the fence at 16, that guys I think have star potential in this draft that we could look back and be like, how did they fall 16? Because I don't think Carrington is making it to the second round, but I would put Carrington and Kaishan George as my two guys there at 16 that I won't be upset if they take the swing on them there, because I do see that they have the goods. They're just young. I mean, Carrington's 6'5", 6'6" now. He was 6'2", like I think a year and a half ago, and I think it was Kaishan George has grown 10 inches in the past 5 years. So maybe even these guys have a couple more inches in them. Who knows? But I think those guys are two potential budding stars, but they're also kind of fitting in that boomer bust mentality too.
Love it. All right. I've added some shot makers on my list, some 3-and-D guys, but I'm going to round this out. You went the point guard role route. I'm going to follow through with that and give me Jamal Shead out of Houston. The Sixers need some toughness. They need a dog. Give me Jamal Shead, man. He's a pit bull, man. This guy is a straight up gamer. As a pick and roll ball handler, as a guy that can make advanced reads, as a guy that can hit off pull up jumpers. Give me this guy. He's small, but he don't tell him that, because he finishes last year with a 61% percentage at the rim. He's a very solid defender. He plays physical. He plays bigger than his listed size, I think. So there's some potential there as an all-ball defender, as a one. So this is a guy that will never be outworked. He's adept at jumping passing lanes and getting physical, creating deflections. He's very solid at the point of attack. So yeah, the concern is the shooting. They need to get that to be more consistent at the NBA level. But the Ringer has shades of TJ McConnell there. I see a little bit of like Trey Jones, Chris Dunn, due to his perimeter defense. But I see this guy as a quality backup point guard in the NBA. So give me Jamal Shead. I need that dog on my roster.
Yeah, I love Shead. I mean, when you watch the Big 12, like I was saying about Kolek at the Big East, like Jamal Shead was the best player in the Big 12 this year. And I also said this last week to you, Sean, like Zach Edey might have been the most valuable player or most dominant player in college basketball this year. Jamal Shead was the most valuable player. Like he really made that team go. And that just goes to show for an undersized guard like that, how kind of important he was to a Houston team that was a top 5 team all season. That defense, and like you said, Dibs, he's not going to be a guy that gets denied. Like he has that in him, and the Sixers could, not just the Sixers, any NBA team could use that kind of presence off your bench. And
he's clutch, man. He's definitely a gamer. Brian chimes in. Can we have tall wings? We've added a ton of wings here throughout this process. We're on the last round, the 5th round. Terrence Shannon Jr., Jalen Tyson, Kevin McCullough Jr., Bub Carrington, Jamal Shead for me. Ryan, you have Harrison Ingram, Justin Edwards, Tyler Kolek, and Deron Holmes. Who is your last pick?
All right, so we're asking for wings. I'll go with a wing here. Sean, I don't know how much you're going to like this one, but I'm going to go with Ryan Dunn here. I've heard more than like 2 to 3 like respected NBA draft media guys say he's one of, if not the best perimeter defender that they've ever evaluated. Like, I don't care what you say about like his offensive game. If you're throwing out best ever, like he's got to have some sort of value, especially on the Sixers team that struggles. I think has been one of, if not their biggest struggle kind of in the Embiid era, that they never had really wings to match up, especially on the defensive end with some of these other prolific teams. Like he's a guy that you do throw at a Jason Tatum, you do throw at a Jaylen Brown going forward. What does he bring you on the offensive end? As of now, not much, if anything. You're probably going to have Matisse Thybulle flashbacks, but still, if you're saying that, if people are saying he's the best perimeter defender they've ever evaluated, I'll take a chance on that and hope he can develop. My one little story about him is he was not even an on the radar Division I player going into his senior year. He kind of had a big senior year, but still got no look. So he wound up having a really strong AAU year and doing a prep school year. So this guy is another player that's a late bloomer. Maybe he still has some offensive potential to grow into and tap into to make him even a threat on that end. But if you're throwing out those kind of comparisons on the defensive end, sign me up for that, because we're going to need that if we're going to want to be hanging around in the East with what Boston has for years to come.
The fact that he's not on my list is mind-blowing, because like that's exactly the type that I absolutely fall in love with. Like if he was just a borderline below average shooter, I'd be all in. But he's not.
He's a zero. Yeah, like zero on offense there. This is what I'll give you about Ryan Dunn is like the Matisse Thybulle comparisons are pretty common for him for obvious reasons here. He's more of a real defender than Matisse Thybulle. That Matisse was very much a steals and block merchant, that he was ready to let a guy run right by him and then try and poke it out from behind, that kind of stuff. He also looks less afraid offensively than Matisse looks. There isn't that like deer in headlights just look on his face that we got from Matisse often. But I just can't convince myself that he ever becomes like a remotely passable offensive player at the NBA level. And like that's you have to give me something, and I just don't think Ryan Dunn ever will. So he's going to have some unreal tape on the defensive end, but I just can't get myself into buying into that risk.
He's going to go to the Knicks and just be like some superstar. I bet you they pick him one of like 24 or 25.
Celtics.
Yeah, or the Celtics at 30, something like that.
What if I were to say how many 3-pointers made in 2 years at Virginia? What would you say?
I think I was looking at it earlier. I think it was only like 14 or 12 or something.
12. Well done, man.
Yeah.
Well done. 12.
In 2 years. In 2 years.
But what are the attempts as well? Like they didn't like. I'm not defending his complete offensive ability, but Virginia is not the place where we're going to go and start diagramming up offense and talking about offensive success, because you could look at anyone on that roster and be like, yeah, no wonder why they average 51 points per game over the last like 5 games.
Brian says Ron Holland would be a dream. I have gone all in on Ron Holland over the last like couple of weeks. And
I heard in mock draft today, the guy was saying if he was the Hawks, he would pick Holland at 1.
What?
That's how all over the place some of these things are. It's like Wednesday night's gonna be wild.
Yeah, it's gonna be really fun. And like, yeah, it's not star heavy, but my gosh, like look at this list. I think there's a solid list of guys that could be available for the Sixers. It's solid. Yeah. It's deep. There's definitely going to be a lot of NBA contributors from this draft. Sean, who's your last guy?
Nope.
Did we lose
There
Sean?
You guys got me on that end?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Can you hear us?
The last pick.
Come on.
Oh no, I think we lost Sean.
All right. If you look at Sean's roster, I think he needs a point guard.
Yeah, he's got solid shooting.
There we go.
Can you hear us?
I know he's going to pick.
All right, I'm back now. I'm not going point guard here. Okay. I'm sticking on the wing. I'm taking Jalen Wells here, a guy that is another interesting path player. He spent 2 years at the D2 level before he transferred, played at Washington State. And by the way, that D2 program, not like a prestigious feeder program, where shout out to Sonoma State for being the home of Jalen Wells here. But he is a guy, he measured in at 6'6.5", 6'7" wingspan. He's 20 years old. Still a guy that this is an upside swing. It's going to take some time, but I do think he has the look and feel of an NBA player. They say shades of Corey Kispert. I know this is reaching for the stars a little bit, but there's some Mikal Bridges in the style, the way that he plays on offense. Like the 3-point shot, he got a little more like dip in it than I would like, but it does feel repeatable. It does feel high level. And they did a lot where it was dumped down to the post. The second there's a double down, it's a kick out to Jalen Wells and he knocked down a 3. He was really high level at that type of offense there. Defensively, when he's on ball, he's very good. He's physical. He's in a guy's grill. When he's off ball, he can get caught ball watching a little bit, but that tends to happen with a lot of players, particularly when there is a high offensive load on him there. So I'm not that concerned with it. I'm pretty excited about the standpoint of I do think that he is a two-way 3-and-D type player. I'm surprised there has been more buzz. I get there's some skepticism that the path that he's taking, but Jalen Wells is a lottery ticket that I would be willing to invest in.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. Solid shooter, solid size. exactly what the Sixers are looking for.
Yeah.
Here's our final list. There it is. Brian says Jacoby Walters. He was also, I believe, on my top 5 targets list for the Sixers there at number 16. Would love him for the Sixers. But here it is. I love my team. I think I got some shot creators. I got some bucket getters, which I need, and some 3-and-D upside. Ryan, what do you think about your squad?
A little bit more like offensively challenged, I would say, but we're gonna lock your ass up, and we're gonna win. We're gonna win these games in the 70s and 80s. I guess I wasn't really kind of constructing it as overall team, but just kind of players that I really would be rooting for, I guess, if the Sixers had the opportunity to select any of these guys. But I definitely value one thing in college, like your production and what you show. And guys like Ingram, Tyler Kolek, Deron Holmes kind of fit that perspective. And then Justin Edwards and Ryan Dunn are 2 guys that I'm more so buying in on future kind of long-term potential.
What about you, John?
Yeah, feel pretty good about my team. Definitely didn't really approach it from the team construct. Taylor Shireman is going to be our superstar for sure. We're building around him. I like this team. These are all guys that kind of fit more of the headsy, smart players that I think are just going to find a way. So that's kind of our identity. I think that applies to Shireman, Jurisic, pretty much my whole team there. Iguodaro, absolutely. So I like it. I'm happy with my squad. There's a lot of talent in the second round.
All right. Before we wrap it up, are there any honorable mentions, names that you want to throw out, Brian?
I'd throw KJ Simpson in there. He really fits the Jamal Shed kind of description as well. And he might even be just a more talented player. But Jamal Shed was really the engine of that Houston team. But KJ Simpson this year, 19.7 points, 5.8 rebounds, 4.9 assists, 5.8 rebounds as a 6-foot guard. And he was the guy I think that helped us stock the most at the draft combine. I watched one of the scrimmages and he was just picking up full court the entire time, and he showed the ability to kind of score the ball a little bit. So KJ Simpson is a guy that I think is going to fit in that Jamal Shed kind of mold and find a way in the league regardless of his size.
All right. And Brian says Zach Edey. Nope.
Apparently, Trailblazers at 7 is the latest report on.
No freaking way, man! No way.
Yeah, I saw that today.
I hope that happens, Sean. I would be laughing my ass off on draft night.
He's probably the number 1 widest range of any player in this draft.
Yeah, we did the mock and we didn't have him go till 30 at the Celtics.
That makes sense. You don't take a 10, 15-minute big off the bench at that place. So any guys you want to give a shout out to, Sean?
Yeah, a couple I'll throw in the mix. Antonio Reeves out of Kentucky, I like a lot, and is a guy that his production is so far there, and he's going to get passed over by several of his teammates who did not produce at the level of his. Feel a little bit bad for Reeves. I think he's a guy who could end up sticking at the NBA level. Isaiah Crawford out of Louisiana Tech.
Yes,
I love him. I was close to going with his name in that my last pick there, but ended up going with Jalen Wells. And just to shout out who these Sixers have officially worked out, the confirmed workouts for what we have for them as a team: Isaiah Collier, Yves Missy, Pacoma Dadiet is, I believe, how you say his name. Dadiet. Yeah. Who's kind of intriguing, by the way.
Shot creator a little bit.
Yeah.
Super raw though.
And the 3 second round pick targets, Dylan Jones, who I mentioned and spoke about, Trenton Flowers, and Tristan Newton are the 3 guys that the Sixers have worked out there. So just some names to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
That list gives me no faith that they'll be keeping the 16th pick.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll throw out some names. We hit on a lot of them. But AJ Mitchell out of Santa Barbara, another point guard, solid size, 6'6" wingspan, really good touch. Not the most explosive athlete, but definitely a guy to watch out for. Melvin Ajinka out of France, 6'8", kind of a quintessential 3-and-D role player shooter. Doesn't really do a lot more than that, but great frame. Not an elite athlete, but potential for sure. Give me KJ Simpson was a good nod. I had him. I also had Jalen Wells, Isaiah Crawford, Jonathan Mogbo. Any thoughts on Jonathan Mogbo as one of the weirdest prospects of this draft?
The mock draft I was listening to today said that they think he might sneak into the first round. He's a guy that's really rose up boards apparently over these past couple weeks. So
Yeah.
Not a name I could say I was familiar with up to a couple weeks ago, but sounding like he's going to hear his name called, whether it's first or second.
I would love. I think that's Tijan Salon.
Yeah.
He would at number 16. I would love that for the Sixers. That would be a really good pick too. All right.
I asked this question, I think, to you already. Sorry, before you wrap up here.
Yeah.
Bobby Klintman, who's kind of my guy. Like I almost drafted him in this mix as well. I don't know if I see as big of a gap between a guy like Salon and a guy like Bobby Klintman. So if we're talking moving down a couple picks in the first, that's another name to keep an eye on.
Yeah, Bobby Klintman would be another good one. But at the end of the day, we're all kind of on the same page. Wings, guards in this draft.
Yes.
That's where they should be doubling down in a big way. You see so many other NBA teams. The Sixers don't have the horses to throw with some of these more athletic teams like the Nuggets and the Celtics when it comes to wings and things like that. So the good news is this draft has a lot of it. And the even better news, we'll be live on Wednesday covering it top to bottom, reaction, analysis. I have a ton of graphics we'll be throwing out throughout the show as well with scouting reports, roles, all that kind of stuff. I'll throw it to you, Sean, first. Final thoughts, plugs. Time is yours.
Yeah, very excited that things are actually happening in the NBA circle, that we have some stuff to break down, enough speculation. So excited for the draft to kind of be the launching point for a good portion of that from the Sixers end. So very excited to be hanging on Wednesday for the draft and a ton of content pumping out after the fact as well. So appreciate you guys for watching this one, and can't wait to break it all down. Muted there.
My bad. I was doing multiple things. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, Sean said it best. We're just looking forward to finally getting there. It's like you put in all the work, the research. I think Sean and I have done probably close to 30, 35 prospect over at PickSwap Media breakdown. So check out those. I think we touched on a lot of guys that could be in play at 16 for the Sixers. So yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll talk on Wednesday night.
Yeah, who knows? We might be talking about a couple of these guys in like a few weeks from now during the summer league. Who knows?
Yeah.
This is going to be a lot of fun. Guys, we will see you on Wednesday night. Party on Broad is tonight at 9:00, talking Eagles, best players 24 and under, and we'll be doing the best duos on the Eagles. We're like
you're in the dog days of summer.
I'm running out of ideas about the Philadelphia Eagles, but it's not going to be about the hatred between Hurts and Sirianni. We're actually going to be talking about roster bubble candidates and things like that. So we'll see you at 9:00. He is Ryan. That is Sean. I am Dives. Thank you everyone for watching. Stay awesome.